Good morning and welcome to Wellbeing Wednesday. I'm absolutely delighted today to be joined by Harold Floyd from Elite Force Safety. But we're not really going to be talking about safety today. We're going to be talking about my second favourite subject, which is men. And we're going to be talking about testosterone and estrogen and all those wonderful things. And really, we're talking about this in relation to mental health, aren't we, Harold? So why men find it quite difficult to talk about their own mental health.
I believe we're going through some changes at the moment where people are saying it's okay to be okay. But if you go back only 20 years, 20, 30 years, it was a man's world and there were men jobs. And when I remember, I did 26 years in the army, and I remember when I joined the army, no women could join the army. It's inconceivable now. You think, really? No women could join the army. That came in while I was serving. And for me, it was very much a man's world. And when you go in as a young guy, you've got to find your place. You've got to know your place. And there's some really strong characters and some men in there. And I think for me, you learn your behaviors from your parents. And if you were 20, 30 years ago and you were in that environment where your dad was the guy and he was the man and you saw him as the role model, and the way he behaved is probably the way that you're going to behave. And I think that's where coming to hopefully the end of that generation, and people like myself now who are recognizing that we need to change, is going to change the way we go forward with this. And our children won't be in the same position with the stigma of being able to talk as a man, if you like.
Yeah, I think we have these stereotypical views of roles. But it was really interesting when we first started to talk about this. Because when we say that, we're not being sexist. We're not saying that women can't do this or shouldn't do that, far from it. But it is the sort of stereotypes that you grow up with. And I think you're right. You and I now have got to maybe a point where we will start to break those stereotypes because our children will learn from us. But we were talking as well about there's a very physical reason why men from quite an early age don't really talk about emotions and how they're feeling, especially if they're feeling sort of vulnerable or not how it's expected they should be feeling.
Yeah, I think for me, so going through what happened with me and in my life and what happens in the human body. So guys have a higher natural testosterone, but they also have estrogen. And then women are the reverse of that. Now, estrogen is part of something that makes you emotional.
Yep.
And testosterone makes you stronger, more of a man, but it's what makes a man different to a woman.
Yep.
Now, what happens is as you get older, as a male gets older and he starts getting into his 30s, I call it the Manopause. Women, I want to say are lucky. They are unlucky, depending on which way you look at it. Women
careful.
go through the menopause quite quickly.
Yeah.
Actually, for a male, he gradually declines over a longer period and keeps on declining. So there's no start to stop. So when you're in your 30s, your testosterone starts to drop. Having that testosterone, you also have the estrogen. Now, because young guys have so much of it, it suppresses that estrogen. So they don't want to talk about their emotions. They just want to find their way in the world. Mm-hmm. But as you get older, this testosterone starts to drop, but the estrogen stays the same. So that's why when guys get into their 40s, and as you know, guys 45 to 49 are the biggest people who attempt or carry out suicide. And for me, I'm thinking it's because they've got all these feelings that they've been suppressing. And also for me, a little bit of a thing is when you seek help, who's going to help you with this? It's common now that people go, HRT, she's going through the change, it's hormone imbalance. You don't hear anybody talking about that with guys.
No.
And I'm going to say, sometimes we don't help ourselves because by the time you're in your 40s, you're probably quite established at what you do. You've probably got a bit of money in the bank, probably paid off your mortgage. And then what starts happening is you become very comfortable. So you're maybe overweight, maybe overdrink, maybe you don't exercise enough. And all these things I'm talking about there suppress your own natural testosterone. So you even drive down your own with your own lifestyles. So that means the estrogen's there. And then at that point there, 45 to 49, you're struggling with it all. And really, that's why I think that guys in that group there are wanting to be young again because their kids have left home and find that they can't do it and the bodies can't cope. So the menopause for me is a real thing. Other people I've heard call it a midlife crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know whether you've noticed, Sandy, but it's only mainly men that do that.
Yeah, women go off the rails in different ways. But it's like, how can we break this cycle? How can we get the message out there to that age range of men, sort of 45 to 49, and say, look, it's okay to be feeling like this. It's okay to talk about it. How can we get that message across?
I'm going to say exactly what you're doing now would be my answer. Just educating people, communicating with people, and people who've been through these things and are going through things. Because it's easy when you know the answer. You know, when you watch Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and you know the answer straight away, it's easy. And there's a guy sat there and he's going, oh, is it this? And then you go, it's that one, it's that one. And it's only because you know the answer. So doing things like we're doing now will really help people to know about recognizing the signs, the symptoms of why you're going through these things, and to recognize that actually you can talk about it, because there's people out there like myself who can help you with that and guide you in possibly nutrition, in exercise. I'm not going to say go to gym and run miles, people won't do it, but also about, consider how much you are drinking. What's the one? Functioning alcoholic. This is a term that's come out that I didn't even realize existed until a few years ago. And I was like, what's a functioning alcoholic? And it's just someone who can drink regular. It doesn't affect their life, so they're not an addict. Well, they drink more than they should, more than their. Am I right? Is it 21 units?
It's something like that, isn't it? But I mean, it's the damage that does to your body over a period of time.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's really interesting, and I think you're right. We just need to keep the lines of conversation open, and we need to encourage people to talk about how they're feeling and not see it as something that's wimpy and unacceptable. And I think, hopefully, you'll agree with me. At the end of this broadcast, I'm going to stick some links up. I'm going to stick a link up to you, if that's okay, and to people like Euron Engler, who are really in a good place to help men with their own mental health.
And what we do at Elite Force Safety is we only employ ex-soldiers. So if you want to talk about, not you, but mental health or the training that we do, if you've got an ex-soldier who's been there and done it and seen it, and he's happy to stand in front of you and talk about it, you go, actually, if he can do it, so can I.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot to be said for getting sort of like men into a men's arena or a man's arena to share that message. I can stand here and waffle on all I like, but sometimes it takes a man to know a man, I think.
And I'd stay away from the menopause and women. I just know it's a shorter period. And then all I do then is I just stick to what I know.
I think you should stay away from menopause and women. I really do. On that note, thank you so much for joining me, Harold. It's an absolute pleasure. And if anybody would like to know more about what we've been chatting about or speak to either of us about mental health awareness, then I'll put some connections in the links. Thanks very much. Take care.